So a very warm welcome to all our viewers and welcome to a new edition of Africa Today, our program that brings you all the latest news and events happening all around the African continent. My name is Angie Meher, and as usual we begin straight away today's episode by taking a look at some of the news making the headlines, where the 6th meeting of the presidents of the African Constitutional and Supreme Courts and African Constitutional Councils in Cairo concluded on Monday. The event discussed a number of issues, including refugees and immigrants, as well as their constitutional rights and guarantees. We have more details in this story.
The 6th meeting of the Presidents of African Constitutional and Supreme Courts and African Constitutional Councils in Cairo concluded on Monday. The head of the Egyptian Higher Constitutional Court read the final communiqué detailing the recommendations of the meeting. He said participants discussed the role of constitutional monitoring in development. He also said they agreed to activate guarantees for the security of judges. He also said there is agreement to regard environment protection as a genuine constitutional right. Addressing the closing session, Chairman of the Board of Commissioners Authority highlighted the importance of judicial cooperation in Africa. He said crimes have become developed and the complexity of laws draw the need for training judges. He said that through the Judicial Scientific Center, countries will be able to cooperate through the internet. The meeting, which saw the participation of 40 African countries, discussed a number of issues, including refugees and immigrants and their constitutional rights and guarantees. It also discussed common challenges, including development, combating terrorism, protecting wealth, and organizing the use of shared natural resources.
And continuing with our news, Cairo expressed commitment to African stability in a meeting with the UN envoy to the Horn of Africa. Cairo said its contributions to African peacekeeping operations showed the Horn of Africa was an integral part of its own national security. We have more details in this report.
The UN Special Envoy to the Horn of Africa visited Egypt to discuss regional security issues, including stability in neighboring countries and Ethiopia's damming of the Nile. Sameh Shoukry met Hanna Tate in Cairo to discuss commitment to help Sudan, South Sudan, Ethiopia and Somalia, security in the Red Sea, and finding an agreement with Addis Ababa over the operation of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. Shoukry said Cairo's contributions to African peacekeeping operations showed that the Horn of Africa was an integral part of its own national security. Shoukry presented efforts to support Sudan and South Sudan in political security and economic challenges, as well as Cairo's aid to Somalia. He also used the meeting to reiterate Cairo's wish to reach a comprehensive agreement on the GERD, which he said was a threat to stability and the interests of the people of the region. The GERD has raised tensions between Ethiopia on the one hand and Egypt and Sudan on the other. The latter two countries are demanding a legally binding agreement on the filling and operation of the dam, which they fear will reduce their share of the Nile's waters. African Union-sponsored negotiations on the issue were frozen in April 2021. Cairo has since called on the UN Security Council to press Ethiopia for an agreement. Shoukry and Tate also discussed how to express African interests during November's COP27 climate conference to be held in Sharm el-Sheikh. Tate said that Egypt had extensive experience in supporting peace and stability in Africa.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're now delighted to be joined over the telephone by His Excellency Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi, the former Assistant Foreign Minister. It's a very good afternoon to you, Mr. Ambassador.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador, for joining us. And let me start by asking you, Mr. Ambassador, we've just seen the United Nations Horn of Africa envoy visiting Egypt and her talks with the Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry. How do you see the timing of this visit, as well as some of the issues that they discussed during the talks, Mr. Ambassador, which of course are related to the latest situation in the Horn of African countries with regards to security and stability?
It's not the timing. It is the importance. Egypt is always looking to the African questions. After all, we are Africans, we are Arabs, we are Muslims, we are Copts. All these faces present Egypt in Africa. Mm-hmm. And I can say easily that Egypt is the most accepted face in the continent. We have a long history, positive history. We are always a sort of mediator in all problems in Africa. We shared the African Union in 2019. We represented Africa for 2 years in the Security Council of the United Nations. So this is one step in our long history and long effort in order to keep Africa in peace and security and development.
Indeed. Mr. Ambassador, during the meeting with the UN envoy, the Foreign Minister expressed his keenness to find an agreement, with Addis Ababa over the operation of the Ethiopian dam. How do you see and weigh Ethiopia's response to the calls to find a settlement suitable to all the parties?
As you see that Egypt is holding a sort of very soft diplomacy here. We make the African Union and the United Nations and all our other organizations and friends aware of what is going on. And I personally believe that this is a political problem because after all, Ethiopia has its own local problem and home problems, which they try to cover it by establishing or creating a problem with Egypt as a neighbor. But if we come to the technical side of the problem, I don't see a serious problem there, except some few remarks. The dam is to produce electricity. And if you want to produce electricity, you have to pass the water through the dam. If you pass the water will come to us and come to Sudan. Also, Ethiopia does not depend on the Blue Nile at all for irrigation. Ethiopia is a country of rains. 99.5% of Ethiopia's needs is covered by the rains. Only 0.5% is covered by the Blue Nile. So they don't need the water. And even if they need it, they can't use it. Why? Because the dam is built on the very north point of Ethiopia towards Sudan. And the water cannot go to the south. So the only way for the water is to go to the north. Only two things are worrying us. First, one of a sudden they decided to double the capacity of the dam, and the experts are worried that this weight of water can destroy the dam, and this will be a disaster to our brothers in Sudan. Another point that they have the dam openness for electricity. What if the generators do not work? Then they will stop the water. So we asked them to open a couple of windows in order to let the water come to the north in case that the generators do not work. They refused. So it is only a small technical issues which we can solve. But what I see is that we have a long breeze doing the diplomatic affairs, and we are telling all our friends, whether on the international or the regional or the bilateral level, what we are looking at in this problem.
Yes, yes, indeed. Right, Mr. Ambassador, also during the meeting, we've seen the Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry speaking about Egypt's contributions to the African peacekeeping operations, all showing, of course, that the Horn of Africa is an integral part of the own national security of the country. How does the security of the Horn of Africa impact Egypt's security as well as the region's security as a whole?
It is a very important situation for us. The maritime safety is one issue. The Suez Canal is another. What is happening in Somalia, what's happening in South Africa, all these issues are very important to us, and we are following all these matters with all keenness. So it's not strange that Egypt is following whatever developments are there.
Yes, and we've also seen Shoukry detailing Cairo's efforts in supporting Sudan and South Sudan in political as well as security and economic challenges. How do you describe the role played in Egypt in these countries, especially in the diplomatic sphere?
I don't see anything strange here because I am of the generation who's saluting one flag of the Egyptian Sudanese kingdom. It was one country. And I remember when I was up to the level of the Alexandria University, the head of the student union was a Sudanese. So we were one country, so we are not treating Sudan as a different country at all. I'm sure that you know that we are hosting more than 4 million Sudanese living in Egypt without any difference out of Egyptians.
Absolutely. And a final question, if I may, Mr. Ambassador. How do you see the recent events like the post-coronavirus pandemic era, as well as the situation and the war between Russia and Ukraine, the repercussions of these global crises on African states, especially on their economic and social spheres?
Very important. And whenever we have any meetings, whether on the summit level, the president or the foreign minister or the ministers, we look to the international main problems, which are the two problems, the epidemic Corona-19 and the war in Ukraine. And thank God when these two incidents happened, we were already standing on very strong feet because we started our economic reform since November 2016.
Yes.
And this gave us the opportunity to be one very rare case that our economy, according to the Arab Monetary Fund, that Egypt will grow this year by 5.5% at growth rate. This is good, and this is a good experience. We are keen to give it and to exchange and share this experience with all our friends. And Africa really in need, in great help to face those two problems. And the international community is aware of what should we do in Africa to face the corona epidemic and the economic repercussions of the war in Ukraine.
Absolutely. All right. Your Excellency, Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi, the former Assistant Foreign Minister, thank you so much, Mr. Ambassador, for your time and your insight and for joining us on today's edition of Africa Today. And to wrap up our show, another final news item coming from the Ivory Coast that accused Bamako of hostage-taking over troops being held in Mali. A source close to the Ivorian presidency said the country will continue to seek a solution through diplomatic channels. We have more details in this report.
Ivory Coast has accused Bamako of hostage-taking after its neighbor laid out conditions for the release of 46 Ivorian soldiers held in Mali for 2 months. The issue should be a hot topic next week during an extraordinary ECOWAS summit set to take place on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly in New York. Ivory Coast says the 49 troops were sent on a routine rotation for personnel who provide backup services for the UN peacekeeping mission in Mali, MINUSMA, and has called for their release. However, the mandate of the troops remained unclear, and they were accused of being mercenaries. The UN acknowledged dysfunctions in a note addressed to the Malian government and admitted that certain measures have not been followed. 3 women in the group were released according to an announcement earlier this month. The arrest of the soldiers after their arrival at Bamako airport on July 10 has sparked a diplomatic crisis between Mali and its West African neighbor. Mali's military-led government says the troops had no orders or supporting documents and has described them as mercenaries. In mid-August, Malian prosecutors filed charges against all 49, including for alleged conspiracy and harm to state security. Talks to secure their release are ongoing.
With this final news item, ladies and gentlemen, we wrap up today's edition of Africa Today. We do hope you have enjoyed it. Join us again tomorrow just after 2 p.m. for a new episode. Till then, you're in the company of myself, Angie Meher. Many thanks for watching.